Okay, everyone, welcome. So good to be with everyone again here. My name is Lama Rod. I use he, him pronouns. I'm on the ancestral land of the Muskogee, Cherokee, and Creek people in a city we call Atlanta now. And I'm so happy to join everyone here. So if you're new, always just um, introduce yourself so we just get a sense of who's here. Um, it's good to see so many new people here. Um, so if you're new, this is a guided practice session using the tradition of Medicine Buddha. And Medicine Buddha is a traditional kind of meditation deity, wisdom deity that we use to work with really just energy healing, like just working with energy, working with subtle energy within the body, or rather the subtle energy body itself, which is kind of a separate embodiment from the physical body, but they're together, so the physical body and the energetic body are linked and impact each other. So that's the tradition we're coming from. So just give it a moment for people to continue to arrive into the space. Always we invite any prayer requests. So whatever you know is coming up for you or for those around you or for the world or your community, you can have the option of just placing that prayer request there, and I will offer those prayer requests as we get deeper into the practice. And if you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see an ask a question kind of line there or a box, and those are where we can just add our questions. If you have any questions about was anything really, anything about the practice, or you can go ahead and add those. Mostly, I'll be able to get to them depending on the time. We try to end no later than an hour and a half into sometime sooner, and that just depends on the practice where we get to. We have been in this season, in this part of the world, in this country, we've been working on kind of autumn, fall-based practices, and working particularly with the theme of abundance. So abundance and healing, right? Working with richness, working with the sense of really the energy of the harvest. The harvest. What does it mean to experience the harvest? To gather everything that you've been working really hard to cultivate. I'm working particularly through issues around how many of us feel as if we don't deserve to experience abundance or having the things that we need, including joy, right? Including joy, happiness, and so forth. And so this is what we're focusing now in this cycle of teaching. And of course, next month we're moving into the solstice. It's so strange. It's like time is speeding up. Like it's almost the solstice, winter solstice. So, and then practice will change then. And also as a reminder, I'll be offering a series of special lectures and talks throughout the year, particularly from the tradition of Medicine Buddha, so coming directly from source texts and from commentaries that I studied when I was learning this practice as well. So I'll be offering those, and not all together. I will probably group them into lectures of 3 and have these, lectures kind of spread out throughout the year. So I want to make sure we get, go through everything, and I just want to have time to do that as well. So yeah. So go ahead and if you have any prayer requests, go ahead and put those into the chat box there. And any questions, go into ask a question. So that way we can keep everything separate, and I can, keep an eye on everything. So I'm going to go with this first question from Jules here. How do we hold abundance with so much continued suffering in our world? At times I feel so overwhelmed with all the pain and poverty, famine, wars, etc., right? And I think that's, again, something that many of us struggle with, and it's something that I used to struggle with as well. So one way that I kind of work with this is first understanding that if I don't feel resourced, then I won't be able to be an agent of change in the world. If there is indeed all this stuff happening, and it is all this stuff happening, right? Climate change, famine, wars, financial instability. I cannot embody the same reality of depletion that's happening around me, right? I can't take on the instability because I am called to embody stability right now in the world, right? And so I can have this kind of deep compassion for the world. And one of the things that we're not doing quite well is actually practicing real compassion, right? And this is, really the basis of my next book, right, is compassion. And compassion isn't about feeling bad about someone or something. It's not about having pity. It's about recognizing and naming the suffering in the world, but not feeling as if I have to take on all the suffering of the world, because it's not mine to take on, right? And that's the particular part of Buddha Dharma, is that I have to do my own labor to move through my own suffering. Like, no one can take my suffering on. People can support me and help me, offer resources, right? But really, it's us individuals doing individual labor to move through suffering and to feel and to get liberated. So compassion actually protects us. Compassion is actually a restorative experience. When we are just noticing, recognizing the discomfort in our experience and discomfort in others' experience, and then moving into this deep wish that we all are free to get free from this, right? And then from that wish we move further and to say, well, how can I actually impact, this reality that I'm struggling with? And I can't do that if I don't have the energy. And nor can I do that if I don't have things that I need. The kinds of abundance that we're working with, right, in the practice is inexhaustible. So it's like we're working with energy that is just like boundless, right? Of course, ultimately that energy is the expression of our true natures, of our Buddha natures, of our awakened self. So really, as we talked about often in this space, in the Medicine Buddha space, is that all we're doing is touching more and more. I'm sorry, I'm wording this wrong. What we're doing in the practice is recognizing who we are, that we're actually not depleted, right? That we're not overwhelmed, right? That we have this natural, innate experience of resourcefulness and energy and clarity, that we have to have the courage to tap into, and that's ours to tap into, right? When I tap into my innate experience of awakenedness and bliss and joy and gratitude, I'm not taking that from anyone else, right? That's inherently already part of my experience, right? And I can't not touch that because I believe that other people are going without. I have to touch that. I have to awaken to my potential. I have to drink fully from this abundance, because if I don't do that, then I become part of the issue of the world. Like, I become another depleted person that's taking resources from the world to be well, instead of drawing upon the resources that are inherent to me. Another way to look at this, of course, is the super tantric Vajrayana view, which is that, you know, touching into the essence of what's arising. Right? So another way of saying that is that, like, I'm overwhelmed by the world because I keep believing in the realness of the world. You know, I keep investing in this dream, this illusion. And it's an experience that relatively is happening, but ultimately not happening, right? And we have to begin to balance the ultimate and the absolute view, and that's actually what sustains us through crisis and instability, is the recognition that, yeah, this is real, this is happening, I'm experiencing this, and at the same time, this isn't really happening. This is a dream, right? This is an illusion. And that this experience of life and living this particular life that we're moving through is this kind of figment of our imagination, right? That's time is conceptual. The mind is nonlinear. This experience of living a life is just a moment, you know. And we have to take all of that into account and to continue to work to help the world and to benefit folks. So, you know, that's the kind of place that I come from in the practice. From my personal practice, right, is that, yeah, the world is really unstable, but the world has always been unstable, right? And in Tibetan, you know, the word for the world is Jigten. And Jigten really translates into destructible base, or a foundation that can be destroyed. So that's in Tibetan, in the Tibetan worldview, in Tibetan religion, in Tibetan Buddhism, the world is already understood to be unstable. You know, so you're entering into a worldview with no expectations for it to be something that is not. And that's what we're trying to struggle with, and coming into relationship with the instability of what we call samsara, like this cycle, really, of illusion, discomfort. What many of us, and most of us, I would say, in this space, and well, actually, I would say most practitioners that I encounter, the thing that we haven't done enough is contemplate what is often called the defects of samsara. You know, the defects of samsara. And basically what that is a contemplation of what samsara really is, the darkness, the suffering of samsara. You contemplate the intensity of samsara, and you're slowly breaking into the illusion of samsara. Like, it's the contemplation of how messed up samsara is begins to overwhelm us, right? And that overwhelm results in a kind of a breaking away, a dissolving of fixation, you know, and then you break into the dream, the illusion, and everything. So that's another way of working with this. Another way of working with it is working with our fear of death, because it really always comes down to like what we're trying to protect, and ultimately what we're protecting is our body and our lives. Because the greatest fear is change and impermanence, which is expressed in death and dying. To do the work around contemplating and practicing with death and dying is to move us eventually into a space of a lot of freedom and a lot of fluidity, because you realize that you spend a lot of energy trying to stay alive, and protect your life and to get the things that you need. And once you let go, once you begin to understand that we're supposed to die, right? And that death isn't this judgment, like that this is a natural process, then you start letting go, you stop investing so much energy in that process, and you start reinvesting that energy and, helping others, right? Or you reinvest the energy into really practicing and working with the illusion of everything that's arising around us. And of course, I would say for me is that my practice has been so deeply grounded in devotion, and that devotion for me has opened up a new experience of body and mind for me, that I can be in the world and understand that I'm not of the world. Like, this world is just this thing that's happening, right? And that I am called to do what I can to be an agent of change and support and benefit, and that's just as simple as that. Like, I'm just here to help, right? And I'm here to do my practice. There's also the work around karma. That, again, karma is a little tougher because karma is like it's extremely non-conceptual. It's non-linear. It's complex, and it's not as fatalistic as we like to think. 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2 in terms of studying karma. It's not such a direct kind of experience. Karma is expansive, it's complex, it's fluid, and we have to be really fully awakened to actually understand the reality of karma and how karma actually impacts us. And I say all of that because we're responsible for our karma. And of course karma isn't a judgment. Like, no one deserves to suffer because of negative karma. Like that's not as inherent as Buddhas, as already awakened. Like, we're not starting from a state of delusion. Our inherent state is awakenedness. It's clarity. It's enlightenment. Like, so we're trying to remember that. We're trying to work through all the ways in which we've kind of forgotten that, and we're trying to work back into an awareness of that, right? And therefore, right, however, because I've slipped back into delusion, right, and forgotten my awakened nature, I keep making choices that create barriers between myself and connecting to that awakened nature of who I am. And so when I am decentering myself, not erasing myself, decentering the sense of I, and beginning to think about the experiences of others, then I am moving closer to my awakened nature, right? And that's part of the work of compassion and wisdom, working in tandem, or ethical care and clarity coming together. This is fundamental work. All this, what I'm talking about is fundamental work. We have to, like, you can't continue to be so swept up by the illusion of the world and what's happening in the world. Because this is what the world, and I mean the world samsara, right? The state, like this is what the state is supposed to do. Like it's supposed to be, there's supposed to be suffering, there's supposed to be this delusion, there's supposed to be this great struggle. That's what happens because we keep believing in it. Like, and once we stop divesting in the reality of samsara and to begin to cultivate clarity and care for ourselves and others, then you start changing your relationship to samsara. You're not going to change samsara, but you're going to change your relationship to samsara, and you're going to help others change their relationship as well. So the way forward, if we're feeling overwhelmed, is actually to go into the overwhelm. Like it's to, as we talked about before, we have to consume the chaos, and that means that we start actually beginning to understand that the chaos itself is just an expression of my own mind. Like that's the ultimate realization, and then we have these smaller relative practices that help to build that realization, like compassion, empathy practice, loving kindness practice. All the practices that we do together in this space are practices that are helping us to earn a realization of what's really happening. And you never stop caring, right? Because these are beings, right, who are kind of trapped in this, like we are still, but at least for us, we have some inkling that there's another alternative. There's like something, a different choice to make. And this is what practice is about. It's about making different choices to actually move into clarity instead of deeper into delusion. And then you continue to mourn, you continue to allow your heart to break, but that doesn't have to be, or nor does it need to be overwhelming. It's just an experience, right? So when we talk about consuming the chaos, we're not allowing ourselves to be swallowed by the heartbreak, because realistically that's impossible. The heartbreak is just my mind, right? How can an expression of my mind, so let's use this example, how can a wave overwhelm the ocean, right? Like how can a wave rising out of the water overwhelm the ocean, right? So the ocean is our mind, the wave is emotions and thoughts, but somehow we are tricked into believing that the wave is greater than the stillness of my mind, and we have to reverse that. We have to take refuge in the mind, the stillness of the mind, so that we begin to experience how everything, the waves arising out of our minds, are just expressions of the mind, and those waves return back to the mind. And so, and because of that, because of all these practices that I've been working on, like what I experience is that, I'm not, like, the experience of this being a dream is just very strong, but it doesn't impact what I choose to do to help people, right? And this is the contradiction here. As we've been talking about over and over again, Tantra is driven by contradiction. It's driven by this tension of opposites. And we're asked to ride that tension. That tension can propel us into awakening. Right? So, of course, the basic tension here, and the contradiction, right, is that I have to recognize this as a dream, and I have to also continue to take this reality seriously, right? Which is the Heart Sutra, again. Like, even though this is a dream, I'm still committed to helping others work through the dream. I'm also committed to moving through this reality as long as I'm here. Like, so I can't get lost. I can't be swallowed by the view of the ultimate, because I'm still here on the earth in the relative. You can't get to heaven until you work out your relationship to earth. You know, you have to work through your relationship to the relative in order to develop an experience of the ultimate. Of course, to do that, you have to go into the relative, right, and begin to develop the experience, the realization that despite how real the relative seems, it's still just an illusion. You know. So that's a lot to say with that. Um, and again, deity practices like Medicine Buddha is actually what helps us in this tradition, in tantric tradition, to actually help us to open up to the reality of things, because you're touching into just the waves of energy and emptiness. You know, that we're just energy and emptiness and space. You know, and deities, meditational deities, wisdom deities like Medicine Buddha opens a door to that experience. But you have to work though. This is about work. You have to work. You have to work. And it, it's. I hope the next book will help everyone to understand the level of work that I do to earn this practice, this realization. I don't think we get what we have to do to get real. Again, my motivation is to get enlightened in this life, right? And that has to become a motivation that we embody, because samsara is so sinister, right? You talk about contradictions, but we also talk about extremism. Like, we have to get extreme. You know, I don't, just being happy and comfortable and developing good merit for the next life isn't enough for me. You know, that's a disappointment for me. That kind of goal will keep you trapped lifetime after lifetime. You know, and you're not guaranteed to be reborn in a life and a body where you're able to practice the teachings to get free. Right? You know, again, Buddhism, spirituality, religion, these are all just concepts. Right? There's no such thing as Buddhism. Buddhism isn't a thing in the Bardo, in the spirit world, or in other worlds. Right? You know, this is a thing that we have in this plane, this particular time and place, that's helping us to understand the nature of what we're moving through. You know, this is why we can't get so fundamental about, well, I would just say Buddhism, but we can't get so fundamental and rigid, and I see that rigidity and the fundamentalism happening. And you're fundamental and rigid because you actually don't have a deep enough practice that actually opens you into the experience of the phenomenal world. You know, so I keep encountering people, even teachers, who actually, quite honestly, should not be teaching. And they're not bad people. I'm not saying these aren't bad, negative people. They're not creating harm. They just haven't practiced enough. And there's a lot of teachers. A lot of teachers have not practiced enough to allow their realization to begin to inform their dharma. They're just allowing scholarship and words to inform, and that's limited. All that's limited. That's rigid. That's, you know, I've read all of that. I've read, all of that. I've gone through all of that. I've gone through the scholarship, right? And over time, like, the scholarship it wasn't aligning with what I was experiencing. And I had to create different ways for me to continue to deepen in the practices, right? And this is what we do here, right? This is the space that we're practicing that. That last part with teachers and practice, I mentioned that only because I wanted to emphasize that we have to commit ourselves to an extreme goal of enlightenment, an extreme but realistic and extremely possible goal, even though it takes intense labor, intense backbreaking work, lifetime after lifetime, right? It takes doing things and allowing ourselves to be consumed by love and compassion. And that in turn will drive us to do certain things. It will drive us to become Harriet Tubman, for instance. It will drive us to, whomever, whoever embodies courage and bravery and compassion. For me, that's Harriet Tubman right now. You have to get that extreme. And many of us we're afraid. Like fear will disrupt the work of enlightenment. Like you wouldn't believe. The fear will come and just like decimate everything if you allow it. It will stop you in your tracks, right? And I had to learn to eat the fear. I had to learn to eat the fear. I had to learn that fear was just this experience that I was investing too much in. Right? And I had to transcend where I thought I belonged. To get the teachings that I needed to get to continue to do this work. Now, granted, this has been a project of mine for multiple, countless lifetimes. But you have to, like, this is something, if there's one thing you don't take out of our practice tonight, well, if there's one thing that you do take out of practice tonight, I want you to take out just like a serious contemplation, at least, a serious reflection of what your goals are in practice. Are you just wanting to feel comfortable or happy or settled? Do you just want to die peacefully? Or do you want to get free? Because the work of freedom and liberation isn't always going to be about being happy and comfortable and having everything. But when we invest in that a goal, right? That goal of enlightenment, right? All these things begin to awaken for us. That make it easier for us to commit to enlightenment. So the longer we're doing it, the more we commit to it, in a way, the easier it gets, because the closer you get to realization and enlightenment, the more space you begin to experience, the more the illusion that you begin to understand. Your suffering transforms, right? And you can do these things, and it's not a big deal. You can be generous. You can be grateful. You can offer your life and your body to save people, and it's not this huge, intense, overwhelming deal, because you are earning this realization of who and what you are. You're not your body, right? You're much more than that. So when you start getting that realization, you begin to understand, okay, I can offer this, because I know that this isn't what I am. This is just an expression of what I am in the moment, but it's not ultimately who I am. And that is the realized perspective of the Bodhisattva, of the Buddhist saint, right? The Buddhist saints, when they've reached this high level of realization, actually understand what they are and who they are. And they can make choices that seem overwhelming for us, because we're still attached to the body. We're attached to our feelings and our narratives, right? the closer you get towards enlightenment, the more you will appear to be just unstable, right? Because part of samsara, this samsara is asking us to be normal, to be stable, and that's not what happens when you get closer to enlightenment. You start acting up because you realize that you have to act up and disrupt in order to shake off the delusion. So there have been great spiritual teachers, great masters. One of my teachers who I never met in this life, Majaya Sati Bhagavati, who started the lineage of yoga and teaching that I'm a part of, was just like completely out there. It was just like, this, white woman from Coney Island, right? From Brooklyn, who awakened, and it was just like, okay, it's time to get people free, and just did the stuff, did the teachings, did, the setting up this lineage, and it was just completely out there with her hair and makeup and nails and shopping, because you begin to embody the energies that you're working with, and these energies aren't subtle energies. Like, this is really intense energy that you're beginning to learn how to embody and to share and to move around, and like you start dancing with that energy, right? And you don't show up in the same way that other people are showing up around you. Like, that energy has to be channeled, right? And the ways that we express ourselves in our personalities draws people, anywho, I will come back to practice. I'm sorry, we'll come back to questions. Well, two questions about enlightenment. Well, enlightenment is basically the exhaustion of duality. When night and day become just one expression, up and down is one expression, black and white is one expression. Enlightenment can be the realization of the illusion of everything, including the ego. And you say, oh, this is just a dream, right? And this dream loses its agency over you because you realize what it is. So enlightenment is like, the old Scooby-Doo cartoons, Scooby-Doo from the 70s, where, you think you have a monster or something, terrorizing people, and then at the end of the episode, it was just some dude in a mask, running around, and you're like, oh, I'm not scared anymore. That's enlightenment. You realize that everything that's been scaring the shit out of you is just a figment of your imagination, and it loses power over you. And then that's when you get real effective in freeing people. You've lost your fear, you've lost your investment in the realness of this. And because you're not bound by the fear of this world or the exhaustion of the world, you can invest all your energy in pulling people out of this and helping them to experience the same realization that you're experiencing. So that's enlightenment. And it takes tremendous work to do that, and it takes more than Buddhism to get enlightened. Now, I know that sounds heretical, but there are profound means and methods outside of meditation and contemplative practices that are there for us to use, to embody, to get free. And that's what I've been really concerned with for the past few years. Like, it's basically, what else? these moments, some of you experience samadhi, which is deep concentration, where this illusion of self and the world gets kind of blurred, right? Particularly the illusion of time, becomes non-linear. So that's really samadhi. Samadhi is when time becomes non-linear, and you step into timelessness. Like the mind focus itself back into the non-linear instead of this linearness that's influenced by the self, the ego. The ego is what's driving this realness and this linearism for us. When we go into samadhi and that becomes blurred, you actually begin, that's realization, that's the realization that begins to emerge. It's like, oh, like this is just non-linear, that there are countless worlds and I'm not actually sitting here, I'm not actually doing this, actually, ultimately, and this isn't happening. Not only that, like I am manifesting across multiple places at once. And that's what we started getting into. And that sounds really interesting, but it's not really that interesting, right? Because it can't be interesting, because if it becomes interesting in a way, well, interesting in a sense that it's something that becomes like a marvel. It's something that we begin to worship like that. This is what I'm talking about when I say interesting. When it becomes interesting like this, then you're automatically off the path, right? Because the point isn't for the reality of things to become interesting. The point is for us to take refuge deeper and deeper into who and what we are, and not to get distracted by all the stuff that we begin to understand about ourselves and the world and all the realities. So anyway, if there are more questions, then we'll get to it. But let's go into our practice. And this will be, again, about 30 minutes of practice for us. We can continue working with abundance. So again, this is our last practice. So we're taking 3 weeks off because I will be back in retreat this week until the second Monday in December, which is like the 6th, December 6th. So that's when we'll come back. So this is a reminder. So I'm going to just begin working with the earth now. Start working with a little bit of grounding. More than likely we'll move into some benefactor practice and beginning to work with the consciousness of Medicine Buddha. But we're going to begin with an opening mantra from Medicine Buddha, which is Om Minla Sanya Kino Soha, which translates into Medicine Buddha, please think of me. The word kino, as I've often said, is literally translated as to know, to think of. But I invite you to translate that word into what you need it to be. So maybe it's not Medicine Buddha, please think of me, but maybe it's Medicine Buddha, please heal me, or Medicine Buddha, please walk with me. We can see Medicine Buddha as an expression of any figure, saint, deity that we're closest to as well. It can be an expression of God or Jesus or Mary Magdalene, or Kali, whatever you're closest to. But my translation tonight in my personal practice is, Medicine Buddha, please know me. Please understand me. Okay. So again, if you're new to this, no worries. You don't have to chant this, but there will be other parts of the practice that I think will be really accessible. But we chant this to begin to shift energy. in our space and also within our bodies, both our physical and energetic bodies. And as we chant this, for those of you who have been here for a bit, what we're doing is beginning to open our minds to the arising of this enlightened consciousness of Medicine Buddha, of Minla Sangye, which is the Tibetan name. Medicine Buddha, Minla Sangye. Minla is medicine, Sangye is purified one. Of course, Sangye is also the word for the Buddha, Sangye. So the Medicine Buddha, all right? So we're going to start with just a few moments of drawing or pulling our awareness into the space that we're practicing in. Noticing this experience of awareness. What does it mean to be aware? And this is not, we're not thinking about this. This isn't a conceptual exercise. This is an experiential exercise. What is my experience of awareness? What is the felt experience of awareness? So again, not thinking about this. This isn't conceptual. It's experiencing, just experience or awareness. And that intentional experiencing is the doorway into the enlightened consciousness of the deity, in this case Medicine Buddha. To just experience being aware. And that awareness is, again, like an ocean, and how an ocean holds so much life and earth and so forth, right? And other secrets. So your mind becomes the ocean, but your mind is just an expression of awareness. Your mind is just awareness that holds everything, that permeates everything. So we're experiencing our mind and our awareness, which are the same. It's just holding everything. I don't have to try to focus on everything because there's nothing that lays outside of my awareness. Just a few more moments here before we move into the mantra. So when you're ready, just transitioning to our mantra, Om Mila Sangye Ki No Soha. And we're just noticing what arises for us as we chant this. And again, the chanting is optional. Om in la sange kino soha. Om in la sange kino soha. Om in la sange kino soha. So we're going to chant this mantra again, but instead this time we're going to hum it. And so with humming it, I want you to bring your tongue up to the hard palate just behind the teeth. So when we're humming, we can feel that vibration at the top of the palate. And that vibration begins to impact our soul energy as well. Okay? So we're going to hum it a few times. And again, just noticing what arises. Turning your energy back into awareness. I wonder if you can allow this experience of awareness, or rather, can you dissolve this sense of who you think you are, what you think you're doing? Can you allow all that to be dissolved in this ocean of awareness, which is our mind? And this experience of awareness and this dissolving our fixations within the ocean like mind, this is where the deity arises. The deity arises out of this ocean of awareness, this emptiness, this space that's imbued with this energy of knowing, this consciousness. This is the moment of birth of Medicine Buddha. And for many of us, this is kind of the stage where we need to invest a lot of our practice right now. The stage of just allowing awareness to be without reacting to everything that's arising, including the state of the world. How can you let everything just move through and flow through this ocean of awareness? How can you let things just be in this moment? We're not reacting, nor are we responding right now. We're not trying to fix the world in this moment. We're trying to develop an experience of our minds and awareness in this moment. And for many of you, you're experiencing anxiety. Sometimes that anxiety manifests as right in the heart center, actually. But a lot of our fear actually manifests in the heart center, the heart chakra. There are physical sensations, maybe a quickened heartbeat, some tightness, fatigue, anger as an emotion. But within this great sea of awareness, can you just notice it and just let it float? You just let it float. Which, as you know, is the last stage of my meditation method, which is just letting it float. Just let it float, let it be there. I don't respond to it, I don't react to it, but I feel it. Because it's happening within this ocean of awareness, I understand, or I might have this experience that I'm not being swallowed by it. It's just something that's arising in my experience, and that's all it is. I'm just going to stay here just for a few more moments. Let the anxiety just be an experience, not a complete reality, not a complete kind of like hurricane that's moving through your experience. Just let it be this experience that's happening. And I wonder if you can just notice it and say, okay, there you are. There you are. Because right now you're not trying to save the world, you're not trying to save anything, you're just being here, noticing, dissolving in this experience of awareness and being. You haven't let go of the world, you're just allowing the world to arise within this boundless experience of space and awareness and energy. And so, in my practice, for me, this is where the deities arise. For me, in this moment where I'm just allowing things to be, where I'm just dissolving in this ocean of awareness, what begins to arise in all this labor is this experience of loving, benevolent, fierce kinds of energies. And I wonder if you notice that for yourself. Or I wonder if you can call that energy up, right? And you can specifically say, may the consciousness of Medicine Buddha arise in my experience in this moment. Or may the Mother arise, or may Tara arise, or may Christ arise. If you want a more fearful, fierce, or wrathful being to arise, you're on your own. I can't take responsibility for that. But let's keep it peaceful. Just allowing this enlightened consciousness to arise, because it's actually our consciousness that we're inviting. The deity, the wisdom deity, in this sense, is just an expression of our own enlightenment. So whatever awakened consciousness that I feel is just me, ultimately, it's just my mind. And the clouds of delusion are parting, and I'm beginning to experience my own clarity. So I want to transition into Medicine Buddha's main mantra. As we do that, as we prepare for that, I invite you to continue to evoke, to call into your experience this enlightened consciousness, this awakened energy. And just noticing this can be quite a subtle, nuanced experience, but this is what we're working with as we're trying to experience this expression of mind, this very nuanced. There's a stillness that's also a part of this as well that we're connecting to. There's a potency in the stillness that lies at the heart of everything. Any thought, any emotion, any experience is a stillness. And that stillness is also an expression of our minds. It's the expression of the deity, of this awakened consciousness. And we want to take refuge in that. So as we begin the first part of our mantra, I invite you to allow yourself to journey into the stillness. Whatever that means for you, and don't think too much about it, because this is, a practice of allowing ourselves to be fluid, to be taken to where we need to be taken, right? To be guided by the blessings of Medicine Buddha. Right? And again, chanting along is optional. I'm more interested in you just allowing whatever to happen. Right? So the mantra is right in the chat box there. O te ya ta begenze ma begenze rasa sumunga te soha. Te ya ta begenze ma begenze rasa sumunga te soha. Te ya ta begenze ma begenze rasa sumunga te soha. Te ya ta begenze ma begenze rasa sumunga te soha. Te ya ta begenze ma begenze rasa sumunga te soha. Te ya ta begenze ma begenze rasa sumunga te soha. Te ya ta begenze ma begenze rasa sumunga te soha. Te ya ta begenze ma begenze rasa sumunga te soha. Te ya ta begenze ma begenze rasa sumunga te soha. Te ya ta begenze ma begenze rasa sumunga te soha. Te ya ta begenze ma begenze rasa sumunga te soha. Te ya ta begenze ma begenze rasa sumunga te soha. Te ya ta begenze ma begenze rasa sumunga te soha. Te ya ta begenze And as we continue, I'm going to take a few moments to offer our prayers. And as we hear the prayers being offered or read them, and again, it's casting in our practice tonight. I invite you rather to offer these prayers and the concerns and the fear and the mourning into the depth of this awareness, of this consciousness, right? To let go and just offer it, right? As we offer this energy, these prayers, there are things that begin to shift, that begin to move, right? Particularly when we're framing the offering of the prayers within what we call bodhicitta, which is just this wish for people to get free, right? When you want people to get free, your prayers are magnetized, they're energized for people to be healed, to get the resources that they need, or for systems of abuse and power to be disrupted. If you want all beings, not just the beings that you love or like, but all beings deserve to be free, regardless of how much we despise them. They deserve to be free. All phenomenal reality deserves to be free. Everything deserves to be free, to be liberated. So this is the perspective that we're coming from. So beginning to offer these prayers on behalf of this community, offering it into the awakened brilliance, clarity of our own mind, which is the mind of Medicine Buddha and all deities. We offer these prayers for my mental health and struggles, for my fellow organizers as we feel heavy burnout. Offering prayers for Alex and Laura that they can heal from their attraction and addiction to alcohol. We're offering prayers for the liberation of Palestine from the violence of apartheid, and for my ancestors who have left their physical bodies, prayers for the liberation of all beings living and beyond. Offering prayers for my daughter and son-in-law as they navigate a steep learning curve to help their son on the autism spectrum with his coping style. He is highly overactive in both activity and speech. We're offering prayers and compassion for myself and my partner as we navigate our way through relational trauma and conflict. Prayers for my ancestors, my grandmother Josephine, my grandfather Herman, and my aunt Omira. I'm offering prayers for my siblings. May they continue to heal and know that they are held by the earth. Prayers for Lama Rod, prayers for all those that are grieving. Offering prayers and healing for Jeff Deeds, who I met as well. May all who have such gloom and despair in their lives be able to find the love and supports to sustain them. Offering prayers for Doris, coping with feelings of depression, loneliness, and feeling immobile. We're offering prayers for Sierra, who is undergoing major surgery soon and facing PTSD from the medical industrial complex. We're offering prayers for my oldest son, who is suffering from a brain injury inflicted upon him, and for my youngest son, for safe travel. For Hava, for Shaya and Bahira, for Anne E., for Sherilyn Pitts, for Margaret, the Hilpert, who unexpectedly entered the Bardo on October 7th, and for her family and friends. Offering prayers for the homeless people, which includes some of my dear friends. Offering prayers for Rainey, who is in hospice from cancer, and prayers for her entire family as they walk the journey with her. Offering prayers for Malu and Sergio, who are struggling financially and with childhood trauma together, trying really hard to not repeat violent family patterns. Offering prayers for a dear friend suddenly lost to COVID complications, and all of us in mourning. Offering prayers for healing racial trauma backwards and forwards. Offering prayers for Annette. She is going through a process of healing her brain and will undergo surgery soon. Offering prayers for Dave, his family, and his helpers as he deals with the unknown effects of seizure and treatment in ICU. Asking for protection for him from unseen forces who don't have his best interests in mind. Offering prayers for Jeff, who transitioned into the Bardo October 31st. May we hold him in his passage. Prayers for Erica. And may her connection with her lineage grow and transform. Prayers for Evan. May he continue to explore and exercise his agency and self-confidence. Offering prayers for Caroline, who is dying of brain stem cancer, and she just had a baby. Also for 30-year-old Noah with colon cancer, and our earth, and for people in Ethiopia and Afghanistan. Offering prayers for my Dharma sister Aisha, who is being worked up for possible stroke or heart attack. prayers for Mary Louise, who passed into the Bardo on October 16th. We continue to offer prayers for the dismantling, disruption of all systems of violence and harmful expression of power and authority that disproportionately impacts the most marginalized and disadvantaged. We continue to pray that all beings have access to the resources that they need to be safe and healthy. May we all have access to the profound teachings that can help us touch into our true, most loving selves. May all the forces and obstacles that get in the way, that prevent us from experiencing liberation, be completely removed. May we all achieve enlightenment as quickly as possible. So letting all the prayers go, moving back into the expanse of awareness, mind, and consciousness. And moving back into our mantra just for a few moments. Again, letting go, settling into awareness, trusting that our praying, our prayers, and our practice is having an impact. O Teya Taum Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Raza Sumunga Tesua. Teya Taum Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Raza Sumunga Tesua. Teya Taum Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Raza Sumunga Tesua. Teya Taum Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Raza Sumunga Tesua. Teya Taum Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Raza Sumunga Tesua. Teya Taum Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Raza Sumunga Tesua. Teya Taum Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Raza Sumunga Tesua. Teya Taum Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Raza Sumunga Tesua. Teya Taum Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Raza Sumunga Tesua. Teya Taum Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Raza Sumunga Tesua. Teya Taum Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Raza Sumunga Tesua. Teya Taum Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Raza Sumunga Tesua. Teya Taum Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Raza Sumunga Tesua. Teya Taum Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Raza Sumunga Tesua. Teya Taum Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Raza Sumunga Tesua. Teya Taum Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Raza Sumunga Tesua. Teya Taum Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Raza Sumunga Tesua. Teya Taum Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Raza Sumunga Tesua. Teya Taum Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Raza Sumunga Tesua. Teya Taum Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Raza Sumunga Tesua. Teya Taum Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Raza Sumunga Tesua. Teya Taum Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Raza Sumunga Tesua. Teya Taum Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Raza Sumunga Tesua. Om Begenze, Begenze, Maha Begenze, Laza Sumanga Jesua. Jayata Om Begenze, Begenze, Maha Begenze, Laza Sumanga Jesua. Jayata Om Begenze, Begenze, Maha Begenze, Laza Sumanga Jesua. Jayata Om Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Laza Sumanga Jesua. Jayata Om Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Laza Sumanga Jesua. Jayata Om Begenze, Begenze, Ma Begenze, Laza Sumanga Jesua. And so slowly we began to come back into this moment, come back into your space. We can use our bodies to do that, so shifting your attention to the weight of your body, making contact with your seat. Allowing the weight of your body to ground you, pulling you back, right? Grounding you, pulling you, anchoring you. And once you feel a little more anchored, just moving through some simple movements. Just slowly beginning to awaken the body and to begin to move energy around that maybe has gotten a little stuck or stagnant somewhere. Right, and we're going to turn our attention to our closing prayer for our session, Shantideva's prayer from the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. We'll recite this 3 times together, okay? May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the balanced creatures, and until they pass away from pain, may I also be a source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures. And until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of very beings that reach into the ends of space. And finally, may I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all the sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures, and until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. Okay. Thank you all so much for your practice today in this session. So again, if you're new, just know that we have all the sessions that we've been doing, this 34, 35 sessions. So about 34, 35 weeks that you can go back and look at and practice through while I am away. So again, I'll be back on the 6th of December to continue. More than likely, we'll move into some winter kind of solstice energy practice as well. But I want you to continue to practice with what we've been working on. Today, this is fundamental. This is really fundamental, basic. Well, it's fundamental and basic, but like this is also really advanced practice at the same time. Just to experience awareness, to allow everything to be held by your awareness without reacting or responding, just letting it be. Okay. And I think that's all the announcements that I have. Okay. So thank you, everyone. I'll see you again soon. A couple of weeks. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone.